Welcome to another video here. We're going to do a bit of a sort of sense-making exercise here on the 6 doctors that have died within Canada over the last few weeks, specifically looking at July. This is a story that's been going on around social media and different news headlines for quite a while. Mainstream has picked up on this as well. There's quite a few things to talk about here. I did write a piece that is pretty extensive looking into this thing. A lot of investigation, a lot of emails, a lot of asking questions to kind of produce what I wrote in this particular article. So I highly recommend you check that out. We are going to go over some of the high-level facts and reflections that I'd like to bring forth with regards to this piece in this video. Again, you might have heard this story as 4 doctors who passed away, maybe 5 doctors who passed away. Now we're on 6 here because I'm including a couple of other instances that I think are interesting to look at. Now, I want to start with kind of some of the social media posts that have been going on out there and some of the news headlines. But essentially, the claims are that all of these doctors died suddenly and unexpectedly following the rollout of booster doses, here in Canada or in their hospitals and that sort of thing. And this is kind of the story that's just circulating everywhere. You got a picture of the doctors and all these claims everywhere. And I want to say off the top, most of these posts are leaving out a number of key facts that very much do change the story. And I'd say in that sense, a lot of these posts are not necessarily accurate. However, there's reason to sort of be open to questioning things on a deeper level. That's what we're going to get into here. And we're going to start by looking at the actual doctors themselves and their situations and their cases and what's going on. So it starts on July 16th, 2022. Dr. Paul Hennem. He's 50 years old. He dies of sudden cardiac failure early into a fun run. So essentially he's exercising and he passes away. Then we have July 17th, which is the next day, Dr. Seagal. He's 49 years old and he dies after a year-long battle with lung cancer. So again, probably diagnosed sometime in and around June of last year, July of last year, somewhere in there, and he passes away. Moving on to Dr. Steven Mckenzie. He died July 18th, so it's a day after that. According to Mackenzie's office, he had been seriously ill leading up to his death, and his office was permanently closed as a result. The nature of his illness was not disclosed. Now, Dr. Mckenzie here apparently had been ill on and off with a chronic condition for quite a long time. And they say that ultimately that led to his death. That's what we know so far. There's nothing been disclosed about what illness that he was suffering from, and we're trying to get that information, but it's a little bit tricky because it seems like there's a lot of tight lips about it. So then on July 19th, we have Dr. Jacob Sowicki. He looked to be about in his 30s or 40s. He had stage 4 gastric cancer. This is one of the most aggressive forms of stomach cancer that's out there. He was diagnosed in August 2021 and was given about a 5% chance of recovering. So you got to imagine that this doctor here probably was experiencing symptoms or had his cancer for months prior to the diagnosis in August of 2021, but we don't know that for sure. These details are going to become important in just a little bit when we start navigating this information a little bit more deeply. Dr. Candice Neyman, she dies on July 28th, 2022. She was 27 years old, so quite young. She collapsed while swimming as she competed in a triathlon. She then died the next day. This is probably cardiac related, but we don't know 100% yet because those details have not really been provided. So all of these doctors passed away in the Greater Toronto Area. So when you're seeing all these posts, the 4 doctors, the 5 doctors who died in the GTA within the month of July, these are pretty much the names that are being talked about. I decided to include another name that I thought was another doctor that was an interesting case that also occurred in July. This happened on July 23rd, 2022. 44-year-old doctor by the name of Dr. Shahryar Jalali Mazluman. So he was in Saskatchewan and practiced there. There are some, in my opinion, uncredible reports. Why I say uncredible is because it's just not very solid, but reports that he was found dead in a swimming pool. We have not been able to confirm this yet. We are working on this. I've emailed several people and reached out to several people to try and figure this out. But I have a hunch that this swimming pool thing might just be sort of a made-up fact on some of the reports. But we'll see what happens here as we figure that out. The key takeaway there is, if this person seemed to have died suddenly and unexpectedly. I mean, that is what was released by the Saskatchewan Health Authority, was that it was a very unexpected death. But, how did he die? We're still trying to figure that out. So we're going to put a little pin in that particular story. So all these cases, we can see that, 3 of them, there was a cancer or a serious illness involved. So what we know is that, these people did not die unexpectedly or suddenly. So in that regard, there's a lot of details being left out of the social media posts with regards to these doctors that, I just don't think tells the full story and a fair story, but we're going to unpack that a little bit more in just a second. Now with Dr. Paul Hannum and Dr. Candice Neyman, we do see that, we have something that's these people healthy, collapsing, cardiac related. This has kind of been some of the claims that have been coming out, right? The stuff that we're keeping a close eye on with a lot of the different studies and a lot of different observational studies that are going on where people are saying, hey, there might be a link between COVID injections and heart failure and heart problems in general. Same sort of link that we see between COVID infections and things like heart problems, heart swelling, right? So this idea that likely the spike protein, whether from infection or from the injection itself, is causing issues within the body related to the heart, related to the brain, related to the cardiovascular system. We see this here, and this could be the explanation for why these 2 doctors passed away. It could also be the explanation for Dr. Maslaman, but we just don't know. There's just not enough information about his particular death for us to jump to that conclusion. And of course, with the other ones, it's absolutely the other 2 that I mentioned there that did die suddenly. It's absolutely fair to ask the question of whether or not this could have been injection related. Now, in terms of the 3 doctors that had cancer, obviously we can see there was 2 of them that had cancer and 1 of them that we didn't know the illness. The 2 that had cancer, we can see that their diagnoses came in and around the time that vaccine rollout did happen here in Canada. So it's fair to ask the question, as some people have been bringing forth, right? We have some oncologists saying, I'm kind of seeing an uptick in cancers since these injections rolled out. So it's fair to ask the question, is it possible that, these doctors had cancer, was it somehow within their body prior to, the injection being rolled out here in Canada, or, is there no relation at all? Like, what's the story here? It's fair to ask these questions because there is emerging science, there is emerging data that is suggesting that these injections cause some sort of immune dysregulation, and ultimately the cells that help in the immune system, the receptors that help to fight off cells that are cancerous may be being turned off in a subset of people on the planet, and therefore, it's possible that you could have unexpected illnesses, autoimmune disease, cancer, so on and so forth, rise as a result of these injections. Now, this is very early, sort of science going on here. We're seeing signals. We're seeing doctors say, hey, I think we should look into this. And this is kind of just being pushed aside as no, these vaccines are safe and effective, which we both know, or which we all know at this point, both of those statements are not necessarily true. So it's fair to ask the question, was there a relation between these people's cancers and the injections? However, to go out and say, well, these injections absolutely caused all these deaths is not a fair statement to make. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'll break that down a little bit further in a second. But I did want to bring in one more doctor. This is Dr. Sohrab Louchmedio. Now, he was practicing in New Brunswick. He was a cardiologist in New Brunswick. He died in November of 2021. So this is actually last year. He was 50 years old and he died unexpectedly in his sleep. So I wanted to bring in his story because this was yet another sort of situation where you have a young, healthy doctor with no issues that's just dying suddenly. And this is where this sentiment is coming from within people. They're wondering, why are people suddenly dying of heart failure? Why are they suddenly dying during exercise? And if we're going to be fair and we're navigating and we're trying to find truth, this is what we're looking for. We have to put both on the table. The possibility that, these issues came from COVID infection and the, unwanted problems that come with that, as well as COVID injections. On both sides of the argument, I'm seeing people say, well, no, COVID infection would never cause these issues. Or on the other side, we're seeing, well, the vaccine would never cause these issues. This is not proper sense making. This is not, proper truth seeking. In this case, we're just trying to hold our narrative as what it is and utilizing examples and situations to say, well, look, see, this proves my position. And you could literally have people on either side of the aisle look at these 3 doctors who did die unexpectedly and say, well, it fits my narrative. One being it could be COVID related, the unintended consequences, and one being, well, it could be the injection and it's the unintended consequences of that. The fact that we have that as a possibility means we don't know, means that we need to continue to navigate towards better investigation and better discussions about this as a collective. Now, where is there an issue here within the information landscape that's, I think, is broken, and I think we're seeing a overall downfall in how we're making sense of a lot of situations here, is that people have chosen their sides and they've chosen them aggressively. And in that, they are creating social media posts, they're creating news stories, whether in the mainstream or whether in the alternative, making these situations seem a lot more clear and a lot more known than they actually are, when in reality, nobody really knows what exactly happened in these situations, but there are a lot of questions that need to be asked if we actually want to understand what's going on here. So my proposition, and I write this kind of in this piece, which again, I highly encourage you to check out, is to take a step back for a second when we're posting things, when we're looking to understand a situation, and really make an attempt to say, what do we know for sure versus what are we, sort of speculating on versus what are we curiously trying to figure out? And then allow our conversations around that to hold those qualities in check, right? Making sure, hey, you know what? This is really odd that these doctors are dying. Here are the facts. What do you guys think? As opposed to, well, no, these doctors are all dying from the injection. We all know this for a fact, right? I don't believe this will lead us towards better sense making. I also don't think that the mainstream writing articles making claims like, well, there's absolutely no link between, the injections and these doctors dying. I don't think that's responsible either. I think at the end of the day, we need to drop all the hyperbole, drop all of the extreme statements, and just look at the situation and say, how do we navigate towards truth? How do we maintain a connected culture of people asking questions by avoiding the extreme posts and by avoiding all of the, if somebody goes out there and makes all these posts that gets shared tens of thousands of times on social media claiming we know for a fact that all these doctors died from the injection, the fact checkers are going to come out. They're going to easily sort of debunk the situation, much like in my article here, I lay out a lot of different facts that change the story, that make it so that it's not as black and white. They're going to come in and they're going to do that, and then it's going to create that divide again in the narrative. So I believe we gain a lot by making a good faith effort to come together and navigate this information with all the facts. And I do believe over the course of time, the truth will come out. Look how much truth has come out from doctors and scientists sticking to their guns, doing their best to make quality statements about what's been going on within this narrative of COVID-19 that is contrary to the mainstream narrative. They've done a really great job of bringing forth facts that have opened a lot of people up to different possibilities. What has hurt the situation is a lot of people or alternative media sources at times coming out with extreme stories, extreme positions, making claims that cannot be backed up by anything, and ultimately it's created an information landscape that's extremely broken. Of course, the mainstream has their own problems that I break down again in this article very, very deeply, so I encourage you to check that out. But I just don't believe we get very far by not bringing a good faith effort to what we're doing here. So that's it. That's all in this particular story. Once again, I say it for like the 5th time. Be sure to check out this article. I'll put a link in the description below. And if you want to see more breakdowns like this as we navigate towards truth and better sense making, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, like, and share this video with other people, because I do believe it's important that we get out the bigger story about this particular instance that's going around right now.